Dr. Victoria Sterling slapped Marcus Thompson across the face in front of the entire emergency room. "I said get me the chart, not stand there like a retarded ape." The sound echoed off the walls. Nurses gasped. Doctors looked away. Security pretended not to see. Marcus didn't move, didn't speak, just let the handprint bloom red across his dark skin while coffee dripped from the chart she'd thrown at him moments before. For 3 months they called him the diversity hire. They laughed at his trembling hands. They made monkey noises when he walked past. They had no idea those steady hands had once held dying Navy SEALs together in the valleys of Afghanistan. The mockery satisfies the moment a black military helicopter descended on the parking lot, and 4 armed operators stormed through the doors demanding their combat legend back. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. Clean it up. Sterling pointed at the coffee pooling on the floor, her designer heel tapping with impatience. Marcus grabbed paper towels from the nurse's station. He knelt on the linoleum, soaking up the brown liquid, while Sterling stood over him. "This is what happens when HR lowers their standards," Sterling announced to the watching staff. "You get people who can't follow simple instructions." Jessica, the charge nurse, snorted. "Maybe he needs pictures. Maybe he needs a handler." Sterling checked her watch. "You have 30 seconds to finish that, Thompson. Then I need you in Bay 4. Try not to get lost on the way." She walked off. Her heels clicked a rhythm of contempt down the corridor. Marcus finished wiping the floor. He stood up slowly, disposed of the towels, and walked toward Bay 4. His face showed nothing. His hands were steady, but inside his chest, something was burning. "Yo, Thompson!" Derek, an orderly with a gut that hung over his belt, blocked the hallway. 2 other orderlies flanked him, grinning. "Where you going so fast, brother?" Derek made the word sound like an insult. "Dr. Sterling got you running errands?" "I have a patient." Nah, hold up." Derek stepped closer. "We were just talking about you, trying to figure something out." Marcus waited. "See, we can't figure how a guy like you got hired here." Derek scratched his chin theatrically. "You barely talk. You move slow. You flinch every time someone drops something. And your hands?" He pointed. "They shake like you got Parkinson's or some shit." The other orderlies laughed. "So what's the deal?" Derek leaned in. "You got dirt on somebody? You sleeping with someone in HR? Or did they just need to fill a quota?" Marcus looked at Derek. Looked at his soft hands that had never held anything heavier than a TV remote. Looked at his smirking face that had never seen anything worse than a bad Yelp review. "I need to get to Bay 4, Marcus said quietly. "Oh, you need to?" Derek mocked his tone. "Listen to this guy, acting like he's important." Marcus stepped around him and kept walking. "That's right, walk away," Derek called after him. "That's all you're good for, ain't it? Walking away and taking orders, like a good little—" Marcus stopped. His hands weren't shaking anymore. He turned around slowly. Derek's smile faltered. "You were saying?" Marcus asked. Something in his voice made Derek take a step back. Something cold. Something dangerous. We were just messing around, man." Derek forced a laugh. "Can't take a joke?" Marcus held his gaze for 3 long seconds. Then he turned and walked away. Behind him, Derek exhaled loudly. "Freak," he muttered. But he didn't say it loud enough for Marcus to hear. Bay 4 held a 16-year-old kid named Jalen, who'd been shot twice in the abdomen during a drive-by. Marcus pushed through the curtain and assessed the situation in 2 seconds flat. 2 nurses fumbling with IV lines, blood pressure dropping. The kid crying for his mama. "Where's the attending?" Marcus asked. "Dr. Sterling's on her way," one nurse said. "She told us to wait." "His pressure's 80/50. We can't wait." "She said—" "I heard what she said." Marcus moved to the bedside. He checked Jalen's pupils, his pulse, the entry wounds. He's bleeding internally. We need to get him to surgery, now. We can't authorize that. Only the attending can. Then get her here, now. The nurse ran. Marcus turned to Jalen. The kid's eyes were wide with terror, tears cutting tracks through the blood on his face. Am I going to die? Jalen whispered. What's your name, son? Jalen. Jalen Williams. Jalen, I need you to look at me. Marcus took his hand. Look at my eyes, right here. Jalen focused on him. You're not going to die tonight. You hear me? I've seen men hurt worse than you walk out of hospitals. You're going to be fine. But I need you to stay calm. Can you do that for me? Jalen nodded weakly. Good man. Now squeeze my hand, hard as you can. Jalen squeezed. It was weak, but it was something. That's good. That's real good. You keep fighting, Jalen. Help is coming. The curtain flew open. Sterling stormed in, her face twisted with annoyance. What's the emergency? I was in the middle of... She looked at the monitors, at the blood, at Marcus holding the patient's hand. Why isn't he prepped for imaging? He needs surgery, Marcus said, not imaging. He's bleeding out. I'll decide what he needs, Thompson. Sterling snapped on gloves. Get me a portable ultrasound. Doctor, with respect, there's no time for... Did I ask for your opinion? Sterling's eyes flashed. Get the ultrasound. Now. Marcus looked at Jalen, at the numbers dropping on the monitor, at the kid who was slowly dying while a doctor's ego took priority over his life. He got the ultrasound. 20 minutes later, Jalen Williams was in emergency surgery. He made it. Barely. The surgeon said another 5 minutes, and they would have lost him. Sterling took credit for the save. She told the family she'd identified the internal bleeding and rushed him to the OR. Marcus stood in the corner, invisible, while Jalen's mother hugged Sterling and called her a hero. Thank you, doctor. Thank you for saving my baby. It's what I do, Sterling said, patting the woman's back. Your son is a fighter. She walked past Marcus on her way out. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second. Sterling smiled. It was the smile of someone who knew she'd won. Who knew she could do anything, say anything, treat anyone however she wanted, and face no consequences. Marcus watched her go. His hands were shaking again. The locker room was empty at 3 a.m. Marcus sat on the bench, his head in his hands. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead like an angry insect. He pulled out his phone, opened his photos. Destiny's face filled the screen. 8 years old, gap-toothed smile, braids with pink ribbons. Her mother's eyes staring back at him. I can't do this anymore, he whispered to the picture. I can't. But even as he said it, he knew he had no choice. Destiny's asthma medication cost $400 a month without insurance. Her inhaler was another $200. The specialist visits, the emergency room trips, the nebulizer treatments. It all added up to a mountain of debt that he could only pay with a steady job and good benefits. St. Jude's had the best health plan in Seattle. He'd taken a pay cut to work here specifically because of that plan. So he swallowed the insults. He absorbed the abuse. He let them call him whatever they wanted, treat him however they wanted, because his daughter needed him to. That's what fathers did. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Patterson. Destiny had a good day. Made you a picture at school. Can't wait to show you. Marcus smiled despite everything. He typed back, Tell her I can't wait to see it. I'll be home for breakfast. He put the phone away and opened his locker. Hidden behind his spare scrubs, buried in a sock, was a pair of dog tags. HM1 Marcus Thompson, DevGru Medical, Blood type, O neg. Call sign, Shepherd. He touched the cold metal, traced the stamped letters with his fingertip. That was another life. Another man. A man who ran toward explosions instead of away from them. A man whose hands never shook because there was no time for fear when your brothers were bleeding. That man was dead. He died in a valley in Afghanistan, holding a 19-year-old kid from Oklahoma while the life drained out of him. He died watching the helicopter fly away without them. He died spending 2 days in a ditch, keeping pressure on wounds that wouldn't stop bleeding, fighting off enemies that wouldn't stop coming. The man who walked out of that valley wasn't Shepherd anymore. He was just Marcus. Just a father. Just a nurse who needed a paycheck and couldn't afford to make waves. Marcus tucked the dog tags back into the sock and closed the locker. "Daddy!" Destiny launched herself at him the moment he walked through the apartment door. Her small arms wrapped around his neck with surprising strength. "Hey, baby girl." He held her tight, breathing in the smell of her shampoo. "Mrs. Patterson said you had a good day." "I did. I got a gold star in reading, and I made you something." She squirmed down and ran to the kitchen table, grabbing a piece of construction paper. "Look!" It was a crayon drawing. A tall figure in blue scrubs, holding hands with a smaller figure in a purple dress. Above them, in wobbly letters, "My daddy is a hero." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "That's me?" He pointed to the tall figure. "Uh-huh, and that's me. And see?" She pointed to the corner of the picture. "That's Mommy watching from heaven." A small figure with wings floated in a cloud, smiling down at them. Marcus knelt down so he was eye level with his daughter. "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." "Really?" "Really." He hugged her again. "I'm going to keep this forever. You can take it to work. So when the mean people are mean, you can look at it and remember that I love you." Marcus pulled back, surprised. "Mean people? What mean people?" Destiny's eyes dropped. "I heard you talking to Mrs. Patterson about the doctors who yell at you." She looked up again. "Why do they yell at you, Daddy? You're nice." How did he explain racism to an 8-year-old? How did he explain that some people would hate her just for existing? That the world wasn't fair, wasn't kind, wasn't the magical place she still believed it was? He couldn't. Not yet. Let her be innocent a little longer. "Sometimes grown-ups have bad days," Marcus said carefully. "And when they have bad days, they take it out on other people. It's not right, but it happens." "Do you have bad days?" "Sometimes." "Do you yell at people?" "Never." He touched her cheek. "Because whenever I start to feel angry, I think about you, and then I feel better." Destiny smiled. "I'm like your medicine." "You're exactly like my medicine." She threw her arms around him again. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, sweetheart. More than anything in the whole world." Mrs. Patterson was waiting in the kitchen with coffee and concern. "She had another episode last night," the elderly woman said quietly, once Destiny was occupied with cartoons. "Woke up around 2, couldn't catch her breath. I used the nebulizer like you showed me. Took about 20 minutes to calm down." Marcus closed his eyes. "I should have been here." "You were working, providing for her. That's what fathers do." "It's getting worse." He ran a hand over his face. "The doctor said the medication should be controlling it by now, but it's getting worse." "Maybe she needs a different medication." "Maybe." What Marcus didn't say was that different medications meant different copays. Specialist consultations meant more bills. Everything cost money he didn't have. Mrs. Patterson seemed to read his thoughts. "How are things at the hospital?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "That bad?" she asked. "There's this doctor. He shook his head. "It doesn't matter. I just need to keep my head down and do my job." "You've been saying that for 3 months, Marcus. But I've known you for 2 years, and I've never seen you look this tired. This defeated." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're barely sleeping. You've lost weight, and sometimes, when you think no one's looking, you get this look in your eyes like—" She paused. "Like you're somewhere else entirely." Marcus stared at his coffee. "You know," Mrs. Patterson said softly, "my husband was in Korea. He came back different, quieter, jumpier. He never talked about what happened over there, but I could see it weighing on him, every single day." "Mrs. Patterson, I'm not asking you to tell me anything. Lord knows you've earned your privacy. But whatever you're carrying, Marcus, it's too heavy for one man, especially one raising a little girl alone." Marcus looked toward the living room, where Destiny was giggling at something on TV. "She's the only thing keeping me going," he admitted. "Some days, she's the only reason I get out of bed." "That's a lot of pressure to put on an 8-year-old. "I know." His voice cracked slightly. "But I don't know what else to do. I don't know how to be anything other than what I am right now. Broken." Mrs. Patterson reached across the table and took his hand. "You're not broken, Marcus Thompson. You're bent. There's a difference." She squeezed gently. "Broken things can't be fixed. Bent things just need someone to help straighten them out." The next week, Sterling escalated. It started with the schedule. Marcus found himself assigned to back-to-back double shifts with no recovery time. 16 hours on, 8 hours off, then 16 more. Within 3 days, he was running on caffeine and willpower. Then came the public humiliations. "Thompson, why does this chart look like a kindergartner filled it out?" "Thompson, did you even go to nursing school?" "Thompson, I've seen faster responses from corpses." Every mistake, real or imagined, was announced to the entire ER. Every success was ignored or credited to someone else. Sterling was building a case, brick by brick, for his termination. Marcus took it, all of it. Head down, shoulders hunched. "Yes, doctor. No, doctor. Whatever you say, doctor." But the pressure was building. He could feel it in his chest, a tightness that wouldn't release. He could feel it in his hands, the trembling that came and went without warning. He could feel it in the dreams that jerked him awake at 3 a.m., gasping for air, reaching for weapons that weren't there. On Thursday night, he made a mistake. A real one. He was so exhausted that he misread a decimal point on a medication order. He caught it before administering the dose. Years of training had drilled double-checking into his muscle memory. But Sterling saw the original error on the chart. "Thompson!" Her scream echoed through the ER like a gunshot. Marcus turned to find her storming toward him, chart in hand, face purple with rage. "You almost killed someone!" She shoved the chart into his chest. "Look at this! Look at it! You wrote 10 milligrams instead of 1. Do you understand what that would have done?" "I caught the error, Dr. Sterling. I didn't administer—" "You caught it this time!" She was screaming now, spittle flying from her lips. "What about next time? What about when you're too slow, too stupid, too incompetent to catch it?" The entire ER had stopped. Patients were watching. Nurses were frozen. Even the janitor had paused mid-mop. "I want you to admit it," Sterling hissed. "Say it. In front of everyone. Say, 'I am not qualified to work here.'" Marcus felt something shift inside him. The burning in his chest turned cold. His hand stopped shaking. "I made an error," he said evenly. "I caught it and corrected it before any harm was done. That's the protocol." That's not what I asked you to say. I know. Sterling's eyes widened. For 3 months, Marcus had been compliant, submissive, broken. This was different. Excuse me? Her voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. I made an error, Marcus repeated. I corrected it. I will not say I'm unqualified because I'm not. Sterling stepped closer, so close he could smell her perfume. Expensive, floral, completely out of place in an ER. You're done, she breathed. I'm going to HR first thing in the morning. I'm going to have your license reviewed. And then I'm going to personally make sure you never work in medicine again. She smiled that predatory smile. How will you pay for your daughter's medication then, Marcus? How will you take care of her when you're unemployed and unemployable? Something flickered in Marcus's eyes. Something dark. Don't. His voice was barely audible. Don't bring my daughter into this. Oh, I'll bring whatever I want into this. That's the difference between us, Thompson. I have power. You have nothing. She turned and walked away, heels clicking that familiar rhythm of contempt. Marcus stood motionless in the middle of the ER, surrounded by staring eyes and whispered conversations. His hands weren't shaking. His breathing was slow and controlled. And somewhere deep inside him, behind walls he'd spent years building, something was waking up. That night, Marcus sat in his car in the hospital parking lot for 2 hours after his shift ended. He didn't drive home. He didn't move. He just sat there, staring at the steering wheel, letting the silence press in around him. His phone buzzed. Mrs. Patterson. Destiny asking when you're coming home. Should I tell her you're on your way? He typed back, 20 minutes. But he didn't start the car. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the dog tags. They felt heavier than he remembered. Colder. Call sign, Shepherd. Shepherd, the one who protects the flock. The one who leads the lost to safety. The one who stands between the wolves and the lambs. He'd earned that name in a dozen firefights across 3 continents. He'd earned it by refusing to leave anyone behind, even when the bullets were flying and the helicopters were leaving. He'd earned it with blood and sweat and tears and the lives of men who would never come home. And now he was sitting in a parking lot, letting a woman with a medical degree and a superiority complex threaten his family while he did nothing. What would Tex say if he could see him now? What would Breaker say? What would any of the men he'd served with think of the broken, submissive shell he'd become? Marcus closed his fist around the dog tags until the edges bit into his palm. I can't, he whispered. I have destiny. I can't risk... Risk what? His job? Sterling was already planning to take that. His dignity? That was long gone. His daughter's respect? My daddy is a hero. How long before she realized it wasn't true? How long before she figured out that her father spent his days being humiliated by people who weren't fit to shine his boots? How long before she stopped believing in him? Marcus started the car. He drove home in silence, the dog tag still clutched in his hand. Destiny was asleep when he arrived. Mrs. Patterson had left a note on the kitchen counter. She waited up as long as she could. Made you another picture. It's on your pillow. Marcus crept into the bedroom. Destiny was curled under her princess blanket, breathing softly. Peaceful. On his pillow. Technically her pillow, since he slept on the couch so she could have the bedroom, was another crayon drawing. This one showed the same tall figure in blue scrubs, but now he was surrounded by other people, small figures lying in beds. And above his head, in careful letters, My daddy helps people. Not hero this time, just helps people. Even his 8-year-old daughter could see the truth. He wasn't saving anyone. He was just there, taking up space, collecting a paycheck while more qualified, more confident, more white doctors did the real work. Marcus sat on the edge of the bed. He touched Destiny's cheek gently. "I'm sorry, baby girl," he whispered. "I'm so sorry I'm not the man you think I am." Destiny stirred. Her eyes fluttered open. "Daddy?" "Shh, go back to sleep." "Are you crying?" He was. He hadn't realized until she said it. "Just tired, sweetheart." Destiny sat up and wrapped her small arms around him. "Don't be sad, Daddy. You're the best daddy in the whole world." "You don't know that." "Yes, I do." She pulled back and looked at him with those ancient eyes. "Mrs. Patterson told me about Mommy, about how she was sick when I was born, about how the doctors said she might not make it, and then she didn't. But you still loved me even though you were sad." Marcus's throat closed up completely. "She said most daddies would have been too sad to be good daddies. But you weren't. You read me stories and made me breakfast and took me to the park even when you were crying inside." Destiny touched his face. "That's what heroes do, Daddy. They keep going, even when it hurts." Marcus broke. He pulled his daughter into his arms and sobbed. Great heaving sobs that shook his whole body. 8 years of grief, of exhaustion, of carrying a weight no human being should have to carry alone. It all came pouring out. Destiny held him through it. This 8-year-old child who had never known her mother, who had spent her whole life watching her father struggle, who understood, somehow, that sometimes the strongest people are the ones who need to be held. When the sobs finally subsided, Marcus pulled back and wiped his face. "I'm sorry," he said. "You shouldn't have to see me like this." "It's okay, Daddy. Everybody cries sometimes, even heroes." He looked at his daughter, at this impossible, beautiful, resilient little person who was somehow his, who depended on him, who believed in him. "I'm going to do better," he said. "I promise." "You're already the best." "I'm going to be better than the best." He kissed her forehead. "Now go back to sleep. Daddy has some thinking to do." Marcus didn't sleep that night. He sat on the couch, staring at the ceiling, turning the dog tags over and over in his hands. By the time the sun came up, he'd made a decision. He wasn't going to quit. He wasn't going to let Sterling drive him out. He wasn't going to spend the rest of his life running from who he used to be. He was going to stand his ground. Not with violence, not with anger, but with something Sterling had never encountered in her pampered, privileged life. Quiet, unshakable competence. He was going to be so good at his job that she couldn't touch him. So careful, so precise, so indispensable that firing him would be impossible. He was going to document everything, every insult, every humiliation, every policy violation, until he had enough evidence to bring to HR himself. He wasn't going to be the victim anymore. He was going to be the shepherd. Marcus showered. He shaved. He put on clean scrubs. He looked at himself in the mirror. For the first time in 3 months, he didn't see a broken man looking back at him. He saw a soldier. "Let's go to work," he said to his reflection. The ER was chaos when he arrived. A massive pileup on I-5 had flooded the hospital with trauma cases. Every bay was full. Doctors were shouting. Nurses were running. The floor was slick with saline and blood. Marcus clocked in and headed straight for the triage desk. "What do we have?" Jessica looked up, surprised by his tone. "Multiple MVAs. 3 critical, 6 serious, dozen minor." Sterling's handling Bay 1. Where do you need me? Bay 3. We've got a construction worker, 42, chest trauma. Dr. Reeves is on his way, but he's stuck in surgery for another 20 minutes. I'm on it. Marcus pushed through the crowd toward Bay 3. He didn't shuffle. He didn't hunch. He walked with purpose. The patient was a big man named Mike. Thick arms, calloused hands. The kind of guy who'd been working job sites since he was 16. He was conscious but scared, clutching his left side. It hurts to breathe, Mike gasped. Doc, am I dying? Marcus checked the monitors, checked Mike's vitals, checked his pupils. You're not dying, Mike, but I need to examine you. Can you tell me what happened? Semi crossed the median, hit me head on. Steering wheel came right into my chest. Marcus lifted Mike's gown and examined the injury. Bruising, consistent with blunt force trauma. But something else caught his attention. Mike's jugular vein was distended, pulsing visibly against the skin of his neck. His breathing wasn't just shallow, it was asymmetrical. One side of his chest was rising normally. The other wasn't rising at all. Marcus felt his own pulse quicken. He recognized these signs. He'd seen them 100 times in combat. Tension pneumothorax. Collapsed lung with air building up in the chest cavity. If left untreated, it would kill Mike within minutes. I need a doctor in Bay 3, Marcus shouted. Now! Sterling appeared in the doorway. What's the problem, Thompson? Can't handle a simple chest injury? This isn't simple. Look at his JVD. Look at his breathing pattern. He has a tension pneumothorax. Sterling sighed dramatically. It's bruising from the seatbelt, Thompson. Even a first-year med student could see that. She turned to leave. Get him a chest x-ray when the machine opens up. Give him some Tylenol. Dr. Sterling, with respect, there's no time for an x-ray. He's decompensating. If we don't intervene now... If we don't intervene? Sterling spun around, her face hardening. You don't intervene anything. You're a nurse. Your job is to follow orders, not diagnose patients. She stepped closer. I've had enough of your insubordination, Thompson. Do what I told you, or clock out and go home to your daughter. She turned and walked away. Mike grabbed Marcus's arm. What's happening? Am I going to be okay? Marcus looked at the monitors. Mike's blood pressure was dropping. His heart rate was climbing. The window was closing. He thought about Sterling's threats, about his job, about his insurance, about destiny. Then he thought about Mike's wedding ring, about the family who was probably sitting in the waiting room, praying that their husband and father would come home. Marcus made his decision. Mike, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? What? I'm going to help you, but I need you to trust me. Mike looked into Marcus's eyes. Whatever he saw there made him nod. Okay, I trust you. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a 14-gauge needle. The same kind of needle he'd used 100 times in the field. The same kind of needle that had saved a dozen lives in the mountains of Afghanistan. He found the landmark. Second intercostal space, mid-clavicular line. The exact spot he'd been trained to hit blindfolded. This is going to hurt, Marcus said, but only for a second. He drove the needle into Mike's chest. Shh! The sound of trapped air escaping was audible over the chaos of the ER. Mike gasped, a deep, life-affirming intake of breath. The monitors immediately stabilized, heart rate dropping, blood pressure rising. Marcus taped the needle in place and looked up. Dr. Sterling was standing in the doorway. Her face was white with shock. Behind her, a crowd had gathered, nurses, doctors, orderlies, all staring at the quiet black nurse who had just performed an emergency surgical procedure. Needle decompression, Marcus said calmly. Standard protocol for tension pneumothorax. Sterling's shock transformed into fury. You just, she was sputtering. You performed a surgical procedure without authorization. You assaulted my patient. I saved his life. You're done, Thompson. Sterling's voice cracked with rage. Security, I want this man escorted off the premises immediately. Marcus didn't move. He looked at Sterling with an expression she'd never seen on his face before. The patient is stable, he said. He needs to be transferred to surgery for a chest tube. I suggest you make the call, Doctor. Sterling, unless you'd like to explain to the board why you ordered Tylenol for a dying man. Sterling's mouth opened, closed, opened again. For the first time in 3 months, she had nothing to say. Marcus turned and walked away, past the stunned nurses, past the gaping doctors, past Jessica, whose jaw was literally hanging open. He walked to the locker room, sat down on the bench, and waited. He'd just ended his career. He'd just thrown away everything he'd spent 3 months protecting. But Mike was alive, and that was worth more than any job. Marcus pulled out the dog tags and held them in his palm. I'm still the shepherd, he whispered. I never stopped. Outside, a sound began to build, low at first, then growing louder. A deep, rhythmic thumping that vibrated the walls. Not the usual medevac helicopter. Something bigger. Something heavier. Something that sounded exactly like the Blackhawks Marcus had spent 6 years of his life riding into combat. He looked up at the small window near the ceiling. No, he breathed. Not here. Please, not here. But the sound kept growing. Closer. Louder. Impossible to ignore. The past had finally caught up with him. The thumping grew louder. The windows rattled. Dust fell from the ceiling tiles in thin streams. Marcus stood up from the bench, his heart hammering against his ribs. He knew that sound. He'd fallen asleep to that sound for 6 years. He'd woken up to it, eaten under it, bled beneath it. That was no medevac helicopter. That was a Blackhawk. Military. The heavy kind that carried operators into places that didn't exist on any map. No, he said again. No, no, no. He grabbed his bag and headed for the back exit. If he could slip out through the loading dock, disappear into the alley, he could be gone before anyone... The locker room door burst open. Thompson! Jessica stood in the doorway, her face pale with confusion and fear. There's a helicopter landing in the parking lot. Military. Men with guns. They're asking for you. Marcus froze. They're not asking for me. They said your name. They said Marcus Thompson. Jessica's voice cracked. What the hell is going on? Who are you? Marcus didn't answer. He pushed past her into the hallway. The entire hospital had descended into chaos. Patients were screaming. Nurses were running toward windows to look outside. The automatic doors at the ambulance bay were jammed open, stuck by the force of the rotor wash. Marcus walked toward the ER, against the flow of panicking staff. Each step felt like moving through water, through time, through the life he'd tried so hard to leave behind. He pushed through the double doors and stopped. The ER was frozen. Every patient, every nurse, every doctor stood motionless, staring at the main entrance. 4 men had just walked through the doors. They were bearded, filthy, wearing multicam pants and tight t-shirts stretched over body armor. Their faces were smeared with grease and exhaustion. Night vision goggles sat flipped up on their helmets, like insect eyes. And they were armed. HK-416 rifles with suppressors, pistols on their thighs, knives strapped to their vests. They moved like wolves, scanning the room, checking corners, weapons at the low ready. Marcus recognized their movements. He'd trained with men who moved like that. He'd been one of them. "What the hell is this?" Dr. Sterling's voice cut through the silence. She marched toward the armed men, her heels clicking furiously. "This is a hospital. You can't bring weapons in here. I'm calling the police." The lead operator didn't slow down. He was massive, 6'4", maybe 6'5", with a thick red beard and a scar running through his left eyebrow. He walked straight through Sterling like she wasn't there, his shoulder checking her hard enough to send her stumbling into a row of wheelchairs. "Hey!" Sterling screamed. "I am a doctor! You can't—" The operator ignored her. He stopped in the middle of the ER and scanned the crowd. His eyes locked onto Marcus. For a long moment, neither man moved. Then the operator spoke, his voice like gravel scraping concrete. "Shepherd." Marcus felt the word hit him like a physical blow. It had been 18 months since anyone had called him that. 18 months of silence and anonymity and pretending to be someone else. "Jack," Marcus said quietly. Commander Jack Breaker Hayes crossed the room in 4 long strides. He stopped directly in front of Marcus, close enough that Marcus could smell the gunpowder and aviation fuel on his clothes. "You're a hard man to find," Breaker said. "I wasn't trying to be found." "I noticed." Breaker's jaw tightened. 18 months, Marcus. 18 months of radio silence. We thought you were dead." "I'm not dead. I'm retired." "There's no retired for people like us. You know that." Sterling had recovered from being knocked aside. She stormed up behind Breaker, her face purple with rage. "I demand to know what's going on. This man is a nurse at my hospital, and I'm about to fire him for gross misconduct. You have no authority here." Breaker didn't turn around. "Is this her?" Marcus nodded slightly. "The one who's been making your life hell?" "Jack, the one who called you a diversity hire? Who threw coffee at your head? Who threatened your daughter?" Sterling's face went white. "How do you know about—" Breaker turned slowly. He looked down at Sterling with eyes that had seen things she couldn't imagine in her worst nightmares. "Dr. Sterling," he said softly, "I'm going to need you to step back and shut up. Can you do that for me?" "I will not be spoken to like—" That wasn't a request. Something in his voice made Sterling take a step backward, then another. She bumped into a crash cart and stopped, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. Breaker turned back to Marcus. "We need you." "I can't." "You haven't heard what I'm going to say yet." "I don't need to hear it. I have a daughter, Jack. She's 8 years old. She needs her father to come home every night." "I know about Destiny." Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. "What?" "I know she has asthma. I know she goes to Jefferson Elementary. I know she lives with you in a 2-bedroom apartment on Maple Street, and your neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, watches her when you work nights." Marcus grabbed Breaker's vest and pulled him close. "If you touched her—" "Easy, brother." Breaker didn't resist. He let Marcus hold him, his voice dropping to a whisper. "She's safe. I have a man outside her school right now. Not to threaten her, to protect her." "Protect her from what?" "From the people who are looking for you." Marcus released him slowly. "What people?" Breaker glanced around the ER. Dozens of eyes were watching them, recording them on phones. This conversation was already on its way to the internet. "Not here," Breaker said. "Come with me. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." "And if I say no?" "Then I'll leave, and whatever happens next happens without you." Breaker's face hardened. "But you should know, Tex is in that bird, and he's dying." The name hit Marcus like a bullet. Tex. Tyler Tex Bremen, 23 years old. Kid from Oklahoma who played harmonica around the campfire and wrote letters to his high school sweetheart. The same kid who'd pulled Marcus out of a burning vehicle in Syria when everyone else had given him up for dead. What happened? Training up near the border. Live fire exercise. Something went wrong with a breach, ricochet, or malfunction, we don't know. He took a round to the neck. Breaker swallowed hard. It's bad, Marcus. It's real bad. Then bring him in here. This is a trauma center. They have surgeons. They can't touch him. What? Why? Breaker leaned closer. The round that hit him. It's experimental. Prototype fragmenting ammunition. It's lodged against his spine. If a civilian surgeon tries to extract it the way they learned in med school, it'll either detonate or shred his spinal cord. Marcus felt his chest tighten. Smart frag. Yeah, MK4 variant. The kind we're not supposed to have. And you want me to... You designed the extraction protocol, Marcus. You wrote the field manual. You're the only person who's ever successfully removed one of those things from a living body. That was years ago, in the field. I had equipment. You had a knife and a pair of pliers. Don't give me that bullshit. Marcus ran a hand over his face. The trembling in his hands was back. Or maybe it had never left. I can't, Jack. I'm not that person anymore. My hands shake. I haven't operated in. Your hands shake because you're holding back. Breaker grabbed Marcus's wrists and held them up. Look at them, right now. Tell me they're shaking. Marcus looked. His hands were steady, rock solid. Not a tremor in sight. They shake when you're pouring coffee, Breaker said. They shake when you're filling out charts. They shake because you're a goddamn thoroughbred pulling a milk cart, and your body knows it, even if your brain doesn't. Jack, Tex is dying. Breaker's voice cracked. The first sign of vulnerability Marcus had ever seen from him. He's 23 years old. He's got a girl back home who's planning their wedding. He saved your life, Marcus. And now he's bleeding out in the back of my bird, asking for you. Specifically, you. He asked for me? He said, don't drag Shepard into this. Which is Tex's way of saying he wants you there more than anything in the world, but he's too noble to ask. Breaker released Marcus's wrists. So I'm asking, I'm begging, please. Marcus looked toward the exit, toward the parking lot where the Blackhawks rotors were still spinning, toward the life he'd tried to leave behind. Then he looked at the ER around him, at the doctors who'd mocked him, at the nurses who'd laughed at him, at Sterling, who was still standing by the crash cart, looking at him like she'd never seen him before. He's really dying? 10 minutes, maybe less. Marcus closed his eyes. He saw Destiny's face, her gap-toothed smile, her drawing. My daddy is a hero. He saw Tex's face, young, scared, bleeding out in the back of a helicopter. He opened his eyes. Get him into Trauma Bay 1. Breaker exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for hours. Copy that. I need the room cleared. No one in or out except your team and whatever nurses I say I need. Done. I need the MRI suite rated. Titanium instruments only. Non-ferrous everything. If anyone brings steel into that room, we all die. Already on it. Ghost, Torch, get to radiology, now. 2 operators peeled off from the group and sprinted down the hallway. Marcus turned to Jessica, who was standing frozen by the nurse's station. Jess, I need 6 units of O-negative, unwarmed. I need a vascular tray, a thoracotomy kit, and the strongest magnet you can find. Jessica stared at him. Marcus, what? Now, Jess. She jumped and ran. Marcus started walking toward Trauma Bay 1. The crowd parted before him like the Red Sea. Sterling stepped into his path. You can't do this, she said. Her voice was shaking. "You're not a doctor. You don't have privileges here. If you operate on a patient and he dies, then I'll deal with the consequences. I'll have you arrested. I'll have your license revoked. Dr. Sterling." Marcus stopped. He looked at her with eyes she'd never seen before. Cold. Hard. The eyes of a man who'd made decisions she couldn't comprehend. "A man is dying. A man who has bled for this country in ways you can't imagine. I am going to save his life. You can either help me or you can get out of my way. But if you try to stop me, I promise you, you will regret it." Sterling's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Who are you?" she whispered. "I'm the man you should have treated with respect." He walked past her and pushed through the doors of Trauma Bay 1. 30 seconds later, 2 operators carried in a stretcher. On it lay a young man with sandy hair and a face gray with blood loss. His neck was wrapped in blood-soaked gauze, and his eyes were closed. "Tex." Marcus was at his side immediately. "Tex, can you hear me?" The young man's eyes fluttered open. Blue eyes, bright with pain and fear. "Shepard?" His voice was barely a whisper. "That you?" "Yeah, brother, it's me." A weak smile crossed Tex's face. "I told them not to bother you. You're out. You're done. You got a kid now." "I got a kid who's going to grow up hearing stories about the uncle who saved her daddy's life in Syria." Marcus squeezed Tex's hand. "Now shut up and let me work." "I'm dying, Shepard." "No, you're not." Marcus looked at the wound, at the small, jagged hole just above the clavicle, at the blood seeping through the gauze. "I'm not going to let you die. The round, I know what the round is. I know what it does, and I know how to get it out." Marcus looked up at Breaker. "Clear the room. Everyone except Jess and your medic." "We don't have a medic. We lost him last month. IED in Kandahar." "Then it's just me and Jess." The doors burst open. Jessica ran in with a crash cart loaded with supplies. Behind her, 2 operators carried plastic bins full of equipment from the MRI suite. "I got everything you asked for," Jessica panted. "But Marcus, I don't understand. How do you know how to—" "Later." Marcus snapped on gloves. "Right now, I need you to do exactly what I say, exactly when I say it. Can you do that?" Jessica looked at him. At this man she'd spent 3 months dismissing as incompetent, at the cold certainty in his eyes. "Yes," she said. "I can do that." "Good. Hang the oneg, wide open, and get me a blood pressure every 30 seconds. The room exploded into controlled chaos. Marcus worked with a precision that Jessica had never seen. His hands moved with mechanical efficiency, checking vitals, assessing the wound, preparing instruments. "BP is 70/40, Jessica called out. "He's shocky." "Push pressors. I need his systolic above 90 before I go in." "Pushing." Marcus examined the wound more closely. The entry point was small, maybe half an inch, but he knew what lay beneath. The Mk4 Smart Frag was designed to be impossible to remove. It had sensors that detected magnetic signatures. If steel came within an inch of it, it would detonate. If anyone tried to pull it out without following the exact extraction protocol, it would fragment and shred everything in its path. "Jack," Marcus called without looking up, "I need you to hold his head. Absolute immobilization. If he moves a millimeter, we're all dead." Breaker moved to the head of the table. He placed his massive hands on Tex's temples, holding him steady. "I got him." "Tex, can you hear me?" "Yeah." The word was barely audible. "I'm going to give you something for the pain, but I can't put you all the way under. I need you conscious. I need you to tell me if anything feels wrong." "Define wrong." Marcus almost smiled. "You'll know it if you feel it." He looked at Jessica. Push 50 of rock and 100 of fentanyl. Keep him comfortable, but responsive. Pushing. Marcus picked up the titanium forceps from the MRI kit. They felt wrong in his hands, lighter than steel, less precise, but they were all he had. "I'm going in," he announced. "Nobody moves, nobody speaks unless I ask you a direct question." The room fell silent except for the rhythmic beep of the cardiac monitor. Marcus inserted the forceps into the wound tract, slowly, carefully, feeling his way through tissue and muscle. "I can feel the casing," he murmured. "It's lodged against the fascia, wrapped around the nerve bundle." "Can you get it?" Breaker asked. "I said no talking." Silence. Marcus worked deeper. The tip of the forceps brushed against something hard. A high-pitched whine began to emanate from the wound. "What is that?" Jessica's voice was tight with fear. "Capacitor charge. It's waking up." Marcus didn't stop. He couldn't stop. "Jack, don't let him move." "I got him." The whine grew higher, louder. The round's anti-tamper circuit was activating. It was sensing the disturbance, calculating whether to detonate. "Shepard," Tex whispered. "I can feel it. It's getting hot." "I know. Stay with me." "I'm scared." "I know. Stay with me anyway." Marcus visualized the schematic in his mind. The MK4 had a 3-second delay once the anti-tamper circuit was fully tripped. 3 seconds to extract it and get it away from the body. He adjusted his grip on the forceps. The whine was a scream now, high and keening. "Everyone get behind whatever cover you can find," Marcus said calmly. "If this goes wrong, there won't be time to run." Nobody moved. "I'm not leaving you," Jessica said. "Jess, I said I'm not leaving. Tell me what to do." Marcus looked at her, at this woman who had mocked him for months, who was now standing beside him, ready to die. "Hold the basin. The second this thing comes out, I'm going to drop it in. Then you run, as fast as you can, out the back door into the parking lot. Throw it as far as you can and get down." Jessica grabbed a metal basin and held it ready. Her hands were shaking, but she didn't back away. "On 3, Marcus said. 1. The whine reached a fever pitch. 2. Tex's body tensed. Breaker held him down with all his strength. 3. Marcus pulled. It wasn't a yank. It was a smooth, controlled extraction, the product of years of training and dozens of field surgeries. The forceps came free with a wet, sucking sound. In their grip was a small cylindrical object, no bigger than an AA battery, covered in blood and tissue. Marcus dropped it into the basin. "Go!" Jessica sprinted for the back door. She slammed through it and disappeared into the hallway. The whine was fading now, the round sensors confused by the sudden removal. But it wouldn't stay confused for long. 10 seconds later, a dull boom shook the hospital. Car alarms began wailing in the distance. Jessica had made the throw. Marcus was already back at work. "Tex, talk to me." I'm still here." "Good, you're doing great. The hard part's over." "My neck feels like it's on fire." "That's because I just pulled a live explosive out of it. We're going to fix the rest now." Marcus grabbed a steel needle driver from the crash cart. Steel was safe now that the round was gone, and started suturing. The internal jugular vein had a partial tear. The brachial plexus was bruised, but intact. The carotid sheath was damaged, but repairable. "BP rising," Jessica's voice came from the doorway. She'd come back. 90/60, heart rate stabilizing. "Hang another unit of O-neg. Keep the pressors running." "Copy." Marcus worked for another 20 minutes, closing layers, tying knots, repairing the damage one stitch at a time. When he finally stepped back from the table, his scrubs were soaked with sweat and blood. His hands ached. His back screamed from hunching over the patient. But Tex was alive. The monitors showed stable vitals, normal sinus rhythm, oxygenation improving. "He's going to make it," Marcus said. Breaker let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for an hour. "You're sure?" "He'll need follow-up surgery for the nerve damage, physical therapy for the arm, but yeah, he's going to make it." Breaker stepped away from the table and grabbed Marcus in a bone-crushing hug. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you, brother." Marcus let himself be held for a moment. Then he pulled back. He's not out of the woods yet. He needs to be transferred to a military hospital, somewhere with the facilities to handle the follow-up. "I'll make the call." Marcus turned to find the entire ER staff crowded around the doors of Trauma Bay 1. They'd been watching through the windows, watching him perform a surgery that none of them could have done, watching him save a life that all of them had written off. Dr. Sterling pushed to the front of the crowd. She stopped, swallowed, tried again. "I don't understand. Who are you?" Marcus looked at her for a long moment. "I'm the nurse you called a diversity hire," he said quietly. "The one you said couldn't count to 16. The one you threw coffee at. The one you threatened to destroy." He stepped closer, and Sterling stepped back. "My name is Marcus Thompson, but my call sign is Shepherd. I was the lead medical officer for DevGru Red Squadron for 6 years. I have a Silver Star for Valor, 2 Purple Hearts, and a Navy Cross that I can't talk about because the mission it came from doesn't officially exist." The ER was dead silent. "I came to this hospital because I wanted peace, because I have a daughter who needs me, because I was tired of watching young men die in my arms." Marcus's voice cracked slightly. "I let you treat me like garbage because I thought that was the price of keeping my head down, of staying invisible, of being a good father." He looked at the crowd, at the faces that had laughed at him, ignored him, written him off. "I was wrong." He turned to Jessica. "Jess, can you monitor his vitals until the transfer team arrives?" Jessica nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, of course." "Thank you." He looked at Breaker. "I need some air." Marcus walked out of Trauma Bay 1, through the crowd that parted before him, and toward the ambulance bay doors. Behind him, Tex's voice called out weakly, "Shepherd?" Marcus stopped, but didn't turn around. "Thank you," Tex said, "for everything." Marcus nodded once. Then he pushed through the doors and stepped outside. The Black Hawk sat in the parking lot, its rotors slowly winding down. The night air was cool and smelled of aviation fuel and freedom. Marcus walked to the edge of the lot and stood alone, looking up at the stars. His hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't from fear or PTSD or exhaustion. It was from adrenaline, from exhilaration, from the feeling of being alive, truly alive, for the first time in 18 months. The shepherd had returned, and he wasn't going back into hiding. Marcus stood alone in the parking lot for less than a minute before the doors behind him burst open. "Thompson!" He didn't turn around. He knew that voice. He'd been hearing it in his nightmares for 3 months. Sterling's heels clicked across the asphalt. She stopped 10 feet behind him, breathing hard. "You can't just walk away from this. There are protocols. There are regulations. You performed surgery without authorization, without privileges, without your permission?" Marcus turned slowly. "Is that what this is about, Dr. Sterling? Your permission? This is about the law, about medical ethics, about your ego." Marcus took a step toward her. "A man was dying. I saved him. And all you can think about is the fact that I did it without asking you first." Sterling's face flushed red. "You're not a doctor." "No, I'm not. I'm something else entirely." "You're a nurse, a night shift nurse who couldn't even—" "I'm a combat medic with more surgical experience than half the residents in this hospital combined." Marcus's voice was ice. "I've performed amputations in the back of moving helicopters. I've done chest tubes by flashlight while mortars fell around me. I've held men's intestines in my hands and pushed them back inside and sewn them up and watched those men walk again." Sterling took a step back. "You called me incompetent," Marcus continued, advancing. "You called me slow. You called me a diversity hire. You threw coffee at my head and threatened my daughter. And the whole time, I could have destroyed you with one phone call. One conversation with your chief of surgery about what really happened in room 402 3 weeks ago." Sterling's face went pale. "What are you talking about?" "The patient with the pacemaker. The one you almost killed by ordering an MRI on a non-compatible device. Dr. Reeves caught your mistake, but you buried it. You falsified the chart to cover your tracks." That's a lie. I was there. I heard the conversation, and I wasn't the only one." Marcus stopped inches from her. "I've been documenting everything, Dr. Sterling. Every mistake you've made. Every patient you've endangered. Every policy you violated. I have dates, times, witnesses." "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Marcus pulled out his phone. 3 months of notes, photos of falsified charts, recordings of conversations you thought were private. He held it up. "One email to the medical board, and your career is over." Sterling's breath was coming in short gasps now. "You wouldn't. You threatened my daughter. You told me you'd make sure I never worked in medicine again. You said you'd destroy me." Marcus leaned in close. "I don't destroy people, Dr. Sterling. That's not who I am. But I protect my family. And if you ever come near me or my daughter again, I will burn your world to the ground." He stepped back, pocketing the phone. "We're done here. I'm going to go back inside and make sure my patient is stable for transport. And you're going to go home and think very carefully about the kind of doctor you want to be." Marcus turned and walked toward the hospital doors. "Wait!" He stopped, but didn't turn around. Sterling's voice was smaller now, broken. "Why didn't you use that evidence before? You could have gotten me fired months ago. Why did you let me treat you like that?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "Because I needed this job," he finally said. "Because my daughter needs her medication, and I needed the insurance. Because I was tired of fighting, and I thought I could just disappear, become invisible." He turned his head slightly. "I was wrong about a lot of things, but I wasn't wrong about you. You're not a bad doctor, Victoria. You're a scared one. You cover your insecurity with arrogance because you're terrified of being found out, of being exposed as less than perfect." Sterling said nothing. "I know that feeling," Marcus continued. "I've lived with it for 18 months. The fear of being seen. The fear of people finding out who you really are." He finally turned to face her. "But here's the thing I learned tonight. You can't hide forever. And when you finally stop hiding, when you finally let yourself be who you really are, that's when you find out what you're actually made of." He pushed through the doors and disappeared inside. Sterling stood alone in the parking lot, surrounded by the fading whine of helicopter rotors and the distant wail of car alarms. For the first time in years, she had nothing to say. The ER was different when Marcus walked back in. The staff who had ignored him for months now watched him with something between awe and fear. The whispers had changed from mockery to speculation. Is it true he's Special Forces? I heard he has a Navy Cross. He pulled a live bomb out of that guy's neck with his bare hands. Marcus ignored all of it. He walked straight to Trauma Bay 1, where Tex was resting comfortably under Jessica's watchful eye. How's he doing? Jessica jumped slightly. She still looked shaken from the events of the past hour. Stable. Vitals are holding. The transport team from Madigan should be here in 30 minutes. Good. Marcus checked the monitors himself. Old habits refusing to die. Any changes in sensation? Movement? He wiggled his fingers about 10 minutes ago. Asked for water. That's good. That's really good. Jessica was staring at him. Marcus could feel her eyes boring into the side of his head. Just ask, he said without looking at her. Why didn't you tell anyone? All these months, you let us... We said such horrible things about you. We laughed at you. And you just took it. Marcus adjusted Tex's IV line. Would it have changed anything? Of course it would have. If you'd known, you would have treated me differently. You would have been afraid of me instead of dismissing me. You would have walked on eggshells, wondering what else I was hiding. He finally met her eyes. I didn't want that. I just wanted to be normal. To have a boring job and a quiet life and enough money to take care of my daughter. But you're not normal. Jessica struggled for words. You're like something out of a movie. I'm a father, Marcus said simply. Everything else comes second. The doors opened and Breaker walked in, satellite phone pressed to his ear. Copy that, Admiral. I'll relay. He ended the call and looked at Marcus. Transport's en route. But there's something else. What? Admiral Holloway wants to talk to you. Personally. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. About what? About coming back. I told you, Jack, I'm out. I have destiny. I know what you told me. But the Admiral has a different proposal. Breaker held out the satellite phone. 5 minutes. That's all he's asking. Marcus looked at the phone like it was a live grenade. If I take that call, it changes everything. It already changed, brother. The second you pulled that round out of Tex's neck, your cover was blown. By tomorrow morning, this story will be all over the news. Social media is already lighting up. Mystery Navy SEAL saves teammate in civilian hospital. Your face is probably on a dozen cell phone videos by now. Marcus closed his eyes. He'd known this was coming. The moment he'd made the decision to save Tex, he'd known his quiet life was over. Destiny, he said. I need to make sure she's safe first. I already have 2 guys watching her. Nothing's going to happen to your little girl. I promise. Marcus opened his eyes. He looked at Tex, sleeping peacefully on the table. He looked at Jessica, still watching him with that mixture of confusion and respect. He looked at Breaker, his old friend, his brother in arms. He took the phone. Admiral. Shepard. The voice on the other end was deep and gravelly, worn down by decades of command. Hell of a thing you did tonight. I did what needed to be done, sir. That's what you've always done. That's why I've spent 18 months trying to find you. Admiral Holloway paused. I'm not going to waste your time with small talk. We need you back. With respect, Admiral, I can't go back to the teams. I have a daughter who needs me home. I know. That's not what I'm asking. Marcus frowned. Then what are you asking? We lost our lead instructor at the Naval Special Warfare Medical Training Center 6 months ago. Heart attack. Good man, but he was 70 years old and should have retired a decade ago. Since then, we've been running the combat medic program with patchwork instructors and outdated curriculum. The washout rate has tripled. And the ones who make it through? Holloway's voice hardened. They're not ready. Not for what's out there now. You want me to teach? I want you to build. New curriculum, new protocols, Take everything you learned in the field and turn it into a program that produces medics who can actually survive modern combat." Holloway paused. "Full commander's pay, stateside assignment. You'd be based at Coronado, but you could live anywhere within commuting distance. And your daughter would have access to military health care, the best in the country." Marcus's heart was pounding. This was everything he'd wanted. A way to serve without deploying. A way to use his skills without leaving destiny behind. "What's the catch?" "No catch, just conditions." Holloway's voice turned serious. "If I give you this program, you give me everything. No half measures, no phoning it in. You build me the best combat medic training course in the world, or you don't do it at all. And if I say no, then you say no, and we never have this conversation again. You go back to your civilian life, and we find someone else." "But Shepard," Holloway's voice softened, "the men we're sending into combat deserve better than someone else. They deserve you." Marcus was silent for a long moment. He thought about the young corpsmen he'd trained over the years, the ones who'd made it, the ones who hadn't. He thought about the letters he'd written to families, explaining that their sons had died because they weren't prepared for what they faced. He thought about destiny and the world she was growing up in. "I need to talk to my daughter first," Marcus said. "She's 8 years old. This decision affects her more than anyone. Take 24 hours. I'll have someone contact you tomorrow evening for your answer." Holloway paused. "And Shepard, whatever you decide, thank you. For what you did tonight. For what you've done for this country." "Don't thank me yet, Admiral. I haven't said yes." "No, but you will." The line went dead. Marcus handed the phone back to Breaker. "Well?" Breaker asked. "I need to go home. I need to see my daughter." "I'll drive you." "You don't have to." "Marcus." Breaker put a hand on his shoulder. "You just saved my best friend's life. The least I can do is give you a ride home." Marcus looked at Tex one more time. The kid was still sleeping, but there was color in his cheeks now, life in his face. "Jess, you'll call me if anything changes?" Jessica hesitated. "I don't have your number." Marcus smiled slightly. It was the first genuine smile he'd worn in months. "Check the staff directory. I'm in there. Under Thompson, Marcus, night shift nurse. Nobody special." He walked out of Trauma Bay 1, Breaker at his side. The crowd in the ER parted for them. Nobody tried to stop them. Nobody asked questions. But as they reached the ambulance bay doors, a voice called out, "Mr. Thompson?" Marcus turned. A young woman in scrubs, a nursing student, barely 20 years old, was standing by the triage desk, clutching a clipboard. "Yes?" She swallowed nervously. "I wanted to say thank you. I've been watching you for weeks, how you handle patients, how you stay calm when everything's crazy. I've learned more from watching you than from any of my classes." Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. Something he hadn't known was tight. "What's your name?" "Emily. Emily Chen." "Emily." Marcus walked over to her. "You ought to be a nurse?" "More than anything." "Then remember this. The degree doesn't make you good at this job. The title doesn't make you worthy of respect. What makes you good, what makes you worthy, is showing up every single day and putting your patients first. Even when it's hard. Even when nobody notices. Even when people treat you like you're nothing." He put a hand on her shoulder. "You're going to be a great nurse, Emily. I can see it." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Call me Marcus." He squeezed her shoulder gently, then turned and walked out into the night. Breaker was waiting by a black SUV with government plates. "Making friends?" he asked. "Something like that. They climbed into the vehicle and pulled out of the parking lot, leaving St. Jude's Medical Center behind. Marcus watched the hospital shrink in the side mirror. 3 months of his life, reduced to a collection of windows and walls. 3 months of humiliation, of hiding, of being someone he wasn't. It was over now. For better or worse, it was over. "You okay?" Breaker asked. "I don't know." Marcus turned to face forward. "I've been hiding for so long, I'm not sure I remember how to be visible." "You'll figure it out. You always do. How's your team holding up? Losing your medic, then almost losing techs. That's a lot in 6 months." Breaker's jaw tightened. "We're hurting, but we're still standing."
That's what we do.
"Who was he? Your medic?"
Doc Morrison. Terry Morrison. Been with us for 8 years.
Breaker's voice thickened. IED outside Kandahar. He was treating a wounded civilian when the second device went off. Never even saw it coming.
I'm sorry, Jack.
Yeah, me too. Breaker was quiet for a moment. "That's why we need you, Marcus. Not in the field. I know you can't do that anymore. But teaching? Training the next generation? That's how we honor men like Terry. By making sure the ones who come after them are ready." Marcus nodded slowly. "The Admiral made me an offer."
I know. I was there when he made the call.
"What do you think I should do?" Breaker glanced at him.
I think that's not my decision to make.
"I'm asking your opinion."
My opinion?
Breaker turned back to the road. "My opinion is that you're the best combat medic I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot of them. If you spend the rest of your career teaching young corpsmen how to do what you do, you'll save more lives than you ever could in the field. Every single medic you train, every patient they save, that's your legacy. That's your contribution. But you have a daughter, and I've seen what this life does to families. The missed birthdays, the phone calls at 3 a.m., the constant worry." Breaker shook his head. "I'm not married. I don't have kids, so I don't know what it's like to weigh that against duty. That's a calculation only you can make." Marcus stared out the window at the passing streetlights. "When I was in the valley," he said slowly, "when we were pinned down for 2 days and I thought we were going to die, I made a promise to God. I said, if you get me out of this, I'll be a good father. I'll put my daughter first. I'll never let anything come between me and her." And I kept that promise. For 18 months, I kept it. I walked away from everything, my friends, my career, my identity, because I thought that's what being a good father meant. Being there, being present, being safe. What do you think now? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I think being a good father isn't just about being there. It's about being someone your child can be proud of. It's about showing them what it means to serve something bigger than yourself. It's about teaching them that when you have a gift, you don't waste it. You use it. You give it to the world." Breaker nodded. "So you're going to take the job?" "I'm going to talk to my daughter first. She gets a vote." They pulled up outside Marcus's apartment building. The lights were on in the second-floor window. Mrs. Patterson was still awake, probably worried sick. Marcus opened the door, then paused. "Jack?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for coming to find me, for not giving up." Breaker smiled. "Brothers don't give up on each other. That's the one rule that never changes." Marcus nodded. He climbed out of the SUV and closed the door. He stood on the sidewalk for a moment, looking up at his window, at the life he'd built, at the daughter who was waiting for him. Then he walked inside and climbed the stairs. Mrs. Patterson's door opened before he reached his own apartment. The elderly woman took one look at his blood-stained scrubs and gasped. "Marcus, what happened? Are you hurt?" "I'm fine, Mrs. Patterson. It's not my blood." "The news. They're saying there was some kind of military incident at the hospital. helicopters and soldiers and—" She stopped, stared at him. "That was you, wasn't it?" "Yes, ma'am. That was me." "They're calling you a hero." Marcus shook his head. "I'm not a hero. I'm just a father who needs to talk to his daughter." He moved past her and unlocked his apartment door. Destiny was sitting on the couch, wrapped in her princess blanket, eyes glued to the television. On the screen, a news anchor was speaking over footage of the Black Hawk helicopter sitting in St. Jude's parking lot. Unconfirmed reports that a nurse at the hospital performed emergency surgery on a military service member. Sources say the patient was a Navy SEAL who had been shot during a training exercise. Destiny heard the door close. She turned around, saw her father, and her eyes went wide. "Daddy!" She launched herself off the couch and ran to him. Marcus dropped to his knees and caught her in his arms. "Hey, baby girl." "Daddy, you're on TV! They're talking about you! The lady said you saved someone's life!" Marcus held her tight, breathing in the scent of her shampoo. "I did, sweetheart. I saved my friend." "Is your friend okay?" "He's going to be fine." Destiny pulled back and looked at him with those ancient eyes. "Daddy, why are you covered in blood?" "Because saving people is messy work sometimes." "Were you scared?" Marcus thought about the question. Really thought about it. "Yes," he admitted. "I was scared, but I did it anyway." "That's what heroes do," Destiny said, matter-of-factly. "They do scary things, even when they're scared." Marcus felt tears prick at his eyes. "Who told you that?" "You did. When I was scared of the dark, and you said being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the thing anyway." Marcus hugged her again. "You're too smart for 8 years old. You know that?" "I know," she giggled. "Daddy, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Are you going to go away now, like Mommy did?" The question hit Marcus like a punch to the chest. He pulled back and looked at his daughter's face. Behind the curiosity, he saw fear. The same fear she'd carried her whole life. The fear of being left alone. "I'm never going to leave you," he said firmly. "No matter what happens, no matter what I do or where I go. You are my world, Destiny. Everything else, everything, comes second." "Promise?" "I promise." Destiny nodded, satisfied. Then she looked at his blood-stained scrubs again. "Daddy?" "Yeah?" "You really need a shower." Marcus laughed. For the first time in months, a real laugh. Deep and full and free. "You're right, baby girl. I really do." He stood up, keeping hold of her hand. "But first, I need to talk to you about something. Something important." "Is it about your job?" "It's about a new job. One that would let me help more people. Teach other nurses and doctors how to save lives like I saved my friend tonight." He led her to the couch and sat down, pulling her onto his lap. "But it would mean some changes. We might have to move to a new city. California." Destiny's eyes went wide. "California? Like where Disneyland is?" "Yeah, close to there." "Would I have to change schools?" "Yes, but we'd find you a new school, a good one." Destiny was quiet for a moment, processing this information with the seriousness of an 8-year-old considering life-altering decisions. "Would you be happy?" she finally asked. Marcus blinked. "What?" "At your job now, you're always sad. Even when you smile, your eyes are sad. Mrs. Patterson says it's because you're not using your gifts." She looked up at him. "Would the new job make your eyes happy again?" Marcus stared at his daughter. This impossible, wise, beautiful child who saw things that grown-ups missed. "Yes," he whispered. "I think it would." "Then we should do it." Destiny nodded decisively. "Because you always say I should use my gifts and not hide them. So you should do that too." Marcus pulled her into a hug, unable to speak around the lump in his throat. "I love you," he finally managed.
I love you too, Daddy. She squirmed in his arms. Now seriously, shower. You smell like a hospital exploded on you.
Marcus laughed again, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand.
Okay, shower, then bed. It's way past your bedtime.
"I was waiting for you."
I know, sweetheart. I know.
He walked to the bathroom, peeling off his ruined scrubs. In the mirror, he caught a glimpse of himself, blood-spattered, exhausted, but somehow more alive than he'd been in 18 months. The shepherd was back, and this time, he wasn't hiding. Marcus woke to the smell of burning toast. He bolted upright on the couch, disoriented for a moment, then heard Destiny's voice from the kitchen.
It's okay, Daddy. I'm making you breakfast.
He checked his phone. 7:47 a.m. He'd slept for less than 4 hours. But somehow, he felt more rested than he had in months. 3 missed calls from the hospital. 2 texts from Jessica. 1 voicemail from a number he didn't recognize. He ignored all of them and walked to the kitchen. Destiny stood on a step stool at the counter, wearing her mother's old apron, the one with sunflowers that was 3 sizes too big. A plate of slightly charred toast sat next to a glass of orange juice.
I made it myself, she announced proudly. Mrs. Patterson helped with the stove part because you said I'm not allowed to touch it, but I did everything else.
Marcus looked at the toast. It was more black than brown, and the butter had been applied in thick, uneven chunks. "It's perfect," he said.
I know it's a little burned, but burned toast is just toast with extra character. That's what you always say.
I do say that. He sat down at the small kitchen table and took a bite. It tasted like charcoal and love. Best toast I've ever had. Destiny beamed. Mrs. Patterson appeared in the doorway, a cup of coffee in her hands.
Figured you could use this.
You're a saint.
I'm a retired woman with too much time on her hands.
She set the coffee in front of him. The news has been running your story all morning. They're calling you the hero nurse. Someone leaked your military record. Marcus sighed. I figured that would happen. Your phone's been ringing off the hook. Reporters mostly. I've been sending them to voicemail. Thank you. There was one call that seemed different, though. A man named Hayes? He said you'd know what it was about. Marcus nodded. I know. Destiny finished arranging the plate and climbed down from her step stool.
Daddy, are we really moving to California?
We're going to talk about it, sweetheart. Nothing's decided yet.
But you said...
I said it was a possibility. Big decisions like this take time. Destiny crossed her arms, looking unconvinced.
You always say that when you're trying to talk yourself out of something.
Marcus and Mrs. Patterson exchanged a glance. When did she get so smart? Marcus asked.
She's always been this smart. You were just too tired to notice.
The doorbell rang. Marcus tensed. His hand moved instinctively toward his hip, a reflex from another life, before he caught himself.
I'll get it, Mrs. Patterson said. You finish your toast.
She walked to the door and opened it. Marcus heard a low murmur of voices. Then Mrs. Patterson returned with an expression he couldn't read.
There's someone here to see you. A woman. Says she's from the hospital.
Marcus stood up slowly. Did she give a name?
Dr. Sterling.
The kitchen went silent. Destiny looked between her father and Mrs. Patterson with wide eyes.
Is that the mean doctor? Destiny asked. The one who threw coffee at you?
Go to your room, sweetheart.
But, please.
Destiny looked like she wanted to argue, but something in her father's face made her stop. She grabbed her plate of toast and shuffled toward her bedroom. Marcus walked to the front door. Sterling stood in the hallway, looking nothing like the woman he'd confronted in the parking lot 12 hours earlier. Her hair was disheveled. Her makeup was smudged. She was wearing the same clothes from yesterday, wrinkled now and stained with coffee. She looked like she hadn't slept at all. "Dr. Sterling." "Mr. Thompson." She swallowed hard. I know I'm probably the last person you want to see right now." "That's accurate." "I deserve that." She took a shaky breath. "I came to apologize." Marcus said nothing. "What I did to you, what I said, how I treated you." Sterling's voice cracked. "There's no excuse. I was cruel. I was petty. I was everything a doctor shouldn't be." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I spent all night thinking about what you said, about being scared, about covering insecurity with arrogance." Tears welled in her eyes. "You were right, about everything. I've been so terrified of failing, of being exposed as a fraud, that I took it out on everyone around me, especially people who couldn't fight back." "People like me." "People like you." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "You could have destroyed me. You had the evidence. You had every reason to use it. But you didn't." "I still could." "I know." Sterling met his eyes. "That's why I'm here. Not because I'm trying to protect myself. Because I need you to know that I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. And I'm going to spend the rest of my career trying to be the doctor you said I could be." Marcus studied her face. The mask was gone. The arrogance was gone. What remained was a woman stripped bare, confronting the ugliest parts of herself for the first time. "Apology accepted," he said finally. Sterling blinked. "Just like that?" "Life's too short for grudges, Dr. Sterling. I've seen too many people die holding on to anger. It poisons everything." He leaned against the doorframe. "You want to make it up to me? Be better. Treat your staff with respect. Listen when a nurse tells you something's wrong. That's how you apologize." "I will. I swear I will." "Good," Marcus straightened. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a little girl who made me breakfast, and I'd like to finish it before it gets cold." He started to close the door. "Mr. Thompson?" He paused. "The patient, Tex. He's being transferred to Madigan this morning." Sterling hesitated. "He asked to see you before he goes. Said he has something important to tell you." Marcus felt his chest tighten. "When?" "The transport arrives at 9. They're staging at the hospital now." Marcus checked his watch. 8:15. He could make it if he left now. "Thank you for telling me. Thank you for not destroying me." She turned and walked down the hallway, disappearing into the stairwell. Marcus closed the door and stood there for a moment, processing. Then he walked back to the kitchen. "I have to go to the hospital," he told Mrs. Patterson. "Can you watch Destiny for a couple hours?" "Of course. Is everything okay?" "An old friend wants to say goodbye before he leaves." Destiny's bedroom door cracked open. "Can I come?" "Not this time, sweetheart." "But I want to meet your friend, the one you saved." Marcus knelt down so he was eye level with her. "Tell you what, when he's feeling better, I'll arrange for you to meet him. But right now, he's hurt and he needs rest, okay?" Destiny considered this. "Will you tell him I said hi?" "I'll tell him." "And that I hope he feels better?" "That too." "And that my daddy is the best daddy in the whole world?" Marcus smiled. "I'll consider it." He kissed her forehead, grabbed his jacket, and headed for the door. The hospital was chaos when Marcus arrived. News vans lined the street. Reporters clustered around the main entrance, shouting questions at anyone who looked official. Security guards formed a barrier at the doors, checking badges and turning away the curious. Marcus walked toward the side entrance, but a reporter spotted him. "That's him! That's the nurse!" Suddenly he was surrounded. Microphones were shoved in his face. Cameras flashed. Questions came from every direction. Mr. Thompson, can you tell us what happened last night? Is it true you're a former Navy SEAL? Did you really pull a live explosive out of a man's chest? How do you feel about being called a hero? Marcus pushed through the crowd without responding. A security guard recognized him and held open the door. Mr. Thompson, they're expecting you in Bay 1. Thanks. He walked through the familiar corridors, past the nurse's station where Jessica had mocked him, past the supply closet where he'd had his panic attacks, past room 402 where he'd first defied Sterling's orders. It felt like a lifetime ago. Trauma Bay 1 was surrounded by military personnel. 4 operators stood guard outside, their weapons held at the low ready. They nodded at Marcus as he approached. Shepard. Is he awake? He's been asking for you. Marcus pushed through the doors. Tex lay on the gurney, propped up slightly. His neck was wrapped in fresh bandages, and his face was still pale, but his eyes were alert, bright, alive. There he is. Tex's voice was raspy, but strong. The man himself. You look like garbage. You should see the other guy. Tex grinned weakly. Oh, wait, you can't, because you pulled him out of my neck. Marcus walked to the bedside and clasped Tex's hand. How are you feeling? Like someone stabbed me in the throat with a prototype fragmenting round, and then someone else yanked it out with a pair of pliers. Titanium forceps, actually. Oh, excuse me, titanium forceps. Very fancy. Tex's grin faded slightly. Seriously, though, thank you. I know what you gave up to do this. I didn't give up anything. Bullshit. You were out. You were done. You had a good thing going. Quiet life, steady job, little girl who thinks the sun rises and sets in your eyes. Tex squeezed Marcus's hand. And you threw it all away to save my sorry ass. First of all, I didn't throw anything away. I made a choice. Marcus sat on the edge of the bed. Second, you're not sorry. You're one of the best men I've ever served with. And third, he paused. You did the same thing for me in Syria. You think I forgot? That was different. How? That was my job. You were out. You had no obligation. I had every obligation. Marcus's voice hardened. You're my brother. When one of us bleeds, we all bleed. That doesn't change just because you take off the uniform. Tex was quiet for a moment. His eyes glistened. I was scared, he admitted. When I felt that round hit, when I knew what it was, I was so scared, Marcus. I thought I was going to die on that helicopter. I thought I was going to die without ever seeing Sarah again, without ever getting to marry her. But you didn't die. No, I didn't. Because of you. Because of the training. Because you stayed calm. Because you fought. Marcus squeezed his hand back. I just did the technical part. You did the hard part. The doors opened. Breaker walked in, followed by a Navy captain Marcus didn't recognize. Time's up, Breaker said. Transport's ready. Marcus stood, but Tex didn't let go of his hand. Wait, there's something I need to tell you. What? Tex looked at the captain. Sir, can we have one more minute? The captain nodded and stepped back outside. Tex turned back to Marcus. His expression had changed, more serious now, almost urgent. I know about the offer, Tex said. The instructor position at Coronado. How do you know about that? Because I recommended you for it, 6 months ago, right after Doc Morrison died. Marcus stared at him. What? The program was falling apart. The Admiral was looking for someone to rebuild it. I told him there was only one person who could do it. The best combat medic I'd ever seen. The one who disappeared 18 months ago. Tex's eyes met Marcus's. I told him to find you, whatever it took. You sent them after me? I sent them to save the program. I didn't know they'd end up saving me too. A tear rolled down Tex's cheek. Funny how that works out. Marcus didn't know what to say. All these months, he'd thought he was hiding. He'd thought he was invisible. But Tex had been looking for him the whole time, had been trying to bring him back. Why didn't you just call me? I tried. Your number was disconnected. Your apartment was empty. You vanished like a ghost. Tex laughed weakly. But I knew you couldn't stay hidden forever. A man like you, you're meant to do more than organize charts and take orders from people who don't deserve to shine your shoes. Tex, take the job, Marcus. Please. For me. For all the young medics who need to learn what you know. For Destiny. He squeezed Marcus's hand one last time. Be who you're meant to be. Stop hiding. The doors opened again. The captain's voice came from behind them. We really need to go. Tex released Marcus's hand. I'll see you at Coronado. You're going to be in recovery for months. Then I'll see you in months. I'm not going anywhere. Tex smiled. Brothers don't give up on each other. Remember? Marcus felt his throat tighten. Yeah, I remember. Two medics entered the room and began preparing Tex for transport. Marcus stepped back, watching as they unhooked monitors and secured the gurney. As they wheeled him toward the door, Tex called out one last time. Hey, Shepard? Yeah? Tell your daughter I said thanks for letting me borrow her daddy. Then he was gone. Marcus stood alone in Trauma Bay 1, surrounded by the discarded remnants of the surgery that had changed everything. Breaker appeared at his side. You okay? He recommended me 6 months ago. He's the reason you found me. I know. Why didn't you tell me? Because it wasn't my story to tell. Breaker put a hand on Marcus's shoulder. And because I wanted you to make this decision for yourself. Not because you felt obligated to Tex or to me or to anyone else. Marcus walked to the window and looked out at the parking lot. The news vans, the reporters, the crowd of people who wanted a piece of the story. This morning, my daughter asked me if I was happy. What did you tell her? I told her no. Not at my job, anyway. She said I should use my gifts instead of hiding them. Marcus turned to face Breaker. She's 8 years old. How does she understand things that took me 18 months to figure out? Kids see the truth. It's adults who complicate everything. Marcus nodded slowly. Then he pulled out his phone. I need to make a call. The Admiral's waiting. Not to him. To my daughter. I promised I'd check in. Marcus walked out of Trauma Bay 1. Past the operators, past the nurses who watched him with new eyes, past the corridors that had been his prison for 3 months. He found a quiet corner near the emergency exit and dialed. Mrs. Patterson answered. Marcus? Hey, can you put Destiny on? Of course. Hold on. A moment later, his daughter's voice came through the phone. Daddy, did you see your friend? I did, sweetheart. I told him you said hi. What did he say? He said thank you for letting him borrow your daddy. Destiny giggled. That's funny. You're not something people can borrow. No, I'm not. Marcus leaned against the wall. Destiny, I need to tell you something. About California? Yes, about California. He took a deep breath. I've decided to take the job. The line was quiet for a moment. Really? Destiny's voice was cautious, hopeful. Really, we're going to move to California. I'm going to teach other people how to save lives. And you're going to start at a new school. A good one. And we'll be near Disneyland? We'll be near Disneyland. Destiny squealed so loudly that Marcus had to pull the phone away from his ear. I knew it! I knew you'd do the right thing! Mrs. Patterson, we're moving to California, near Disneyland! Marcus heard Mrs. Patterson's muffled voice in the background. Then Destiny was back on the line. When do we leave? Soon, sweetheart. There's some things I have to take care of first, but soon. Can I tell my friends? You can tell whoever you want. Can I tell them my daddy is a hero? Marcus felt tears prick at his eyes. You can tell them whatever you want. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, baby girl. More than anything in the whole world. He hung up and stood there for a moment, letting the decision settle into his bones. It was done. No going back now. He pulled up the Admiral's number and typed out a text. I'm in. When do we start? The response came back 30 seconds later. Monday. Report to Coronado 0800. Welcome back, Shepard. Marcus pocketed his phone and walked back toward the ER. Jessica was waiting near the nurse's station. She looked nervous, uncertain. I heard you're leaving, she said. Word travels fast. It's a hospital. Gossip is basically currency. She hesitated. I know I wasn't. Look, I'm sorry for everything. The way I treated you, the things I said. It's okay, Jess. It's not okay. I was horrible to you. We all were. Her eyes filled with tears. You saved that man's life. You're a hero. And I spent 3 months making fun of you behind your back. You didn't know. That's not an excuse. I should have treated you with respect regardless. That's basic human decency. She wiped her eyes. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. And I'm going to do better. I'm going to be better. Marcus studied her face, the same face that had smirked at him in the hallways, that had whispered jokes about him to Sterling, that had called him incompetent and slow and a diversity hire. But there was something different there now. Something real. You know what makes someone a good nurse? Marcus asked. What? Not the training, not the degree, not even the skills. He stepped closer. It's the ability to look at yourself honestly, to admit when you're wrong, to commit to doing better. He put a hand on her shoulder. You just did all three. That tells me you're going to be a great nurse, Jess, despite everything. Jessica started crying in earnest. Thank you. I don't deserve that. Probably not, but I'm giving it to you anyway. He squeezed her shoulder. Take care of yourself, and take care of this place. It needs good people. He turned and walked toward the exit. Marcus? He paused. That Emily girl, the nursing student who thanked you last night. She quit her program this morning. Marcus frowned. Why? She said she wanted to join the military, become a combat medic. Jessica smiled through her tears. She said if that's the kind of person the military produces, she wants to be part of it. Something warm spread through Marcus's chest. Tell her to look me up when she gets to Coronado. I will. Marcus walked out of St. Jude's Medical Center for the last time. The reporters were still clustered around the entrance, but they didn't recognize him without his scrubs. He slipped past them and walked to his car. Inside, he sat behind the wheel for a long moment, looking at the hospital through the windshield. 3 months of his life. 3 months of hiding, of suffering, of being someone he wasn't. It was over now. He started the car and drove home. Destiny was waiting on the front steps when he pulled up, practically vibrating with excitement. Daddy, Mrs. Patterson said we can start packing tonight. She's going to help us. She said she knows a man with a truck who can move our stuff. Marcus climbed out of the car and scooped his daughter into his arms. Slow down, sweetheart. We have time. But I want to go now. I want to see Disneyland. I want to see the ocean. You'll see all of it, I promise. He carried her inside. But first, we have to do things the right way. Give notice to the landlord. Say goodbye to your friends. Make sure Mrs. Patterson knows how much we appreciate her. Destiny's face fell slightly. I don't want to say goodbye to Mrs. Patterson. I know, sweetheart. Goodbyes are hard. Can she come with us? Marcus laughed. I don't think she wants to move to California.
Have you asked her?
Well, no.
Then how do you know?
Destiny crossed her arms with the certainty of an 8-year-old who had just discovered a flaw in adult logic. Marcus set her down and turned to Mrs. Patterson, who was standing in the doorway with an amused expression. "Mrs. Patterson, would you like to move to California with us?" The elderly woman laughed. "You know, I've always wanted to see the Pacific Ocean." Destiny's eyes went wide. "Really?" "Really. My sister lives in San Diego. Been asking me to visit for years." Mrs. Patterson smiled at Marcus. "If you're serious about that job, you're going to need someone to watch this little tornado while you're teaching. Might as well be someone who already knows her tricks." Marcus felt something loosen in his chest, the last thread of worry he'd been carrying. "Are you sure?" "I'm 72 years old. I've lived in Seattle my entire life. Spent 40 years teaching kindergarten, 10 years in retirement watching TV and waiting to die." She walked over and took Destiny's hand. "This child gave me a reason to get up in the morning again. I'm not about to let her go now." Destiny threw her arms around Mrs. Patterson's waist. "You're the best, Mrs. Patterson." "I know, dear. I know." Marcus watched them, his heart full to bursting. For the first time in 18 months, he felt like everything was going to be okay. Not just okay, better than okay. He was going to build something that would last long after he was gone, a legacy of training and knowledge and skill that would save countless lives. And he was going to do it with his daughter by his side. His phone buzzed. A text from Breaker. "The boys want to take you out tonight. Celebrate the old man's return. What do you say?" Marcus typed back. "Can't. Got a date with my daughter." Breaker's response. "That's the right answer. Welcome back, brother." Marcus pocketed the phone and walked over to Destiny. "So," he said, "I hear you want to see Disneyland." "More than anything." "Well, I was thinking. California's about a 15-hour drive from here. That's a lot of car time." He knelt down to her level. "What if we stopped at some places along the way? Made it an adventure?" Destiny's eyes lit up. "Like what kind of places?" "I don't know. The redwoods, the beach, maybe a few national parks." He smiled. "Just you and me, seeing the country together. What do you think?" Destiny threw her arms around his neck. "I think you're the best daddy in the whole world." "I know, sweetheart." He hugged her back, his eyes meeting Mrs. Patterson's over her shoulder. "I know." 6 months later, the lecture hall at the Naval Amphibious Base in Coronado was filled to capacity. 50 young candidates sat in rigid silence. Navy corpsmen, Army medics, Air Force pararescuemen. The best of the best, hand-picked from thousands of applicants. They were exhausted, mud-caked, and terrified. They had spent the last 3 weeks being broken down. Sleep deprivation, physical punishment, psychological pressure designed to shatter anyone who didn't belong. 30% had already washed out. The ones who remained were about to meet the man who would rebuild them. The door at the front of the room opened. Senior Chief Marcus Thompson walked in. He wore crisp Navy working fatigues, a silver oak leaf insignia on his collar. His posture was straight, his eyes were sharp. He moved with the quiet confidence of a man who had nothing left to prove. He walked to the podium and set down a single laser pointer. Then he waited. The silence stretched. 1 minute. 2. The recruits shifted uncomfortably in their seats, unsure if they should speak, unsure what was happening. Marcus let them sweat. Finally, he spoke. "My name is Senior Chief Thompson. Some of you have heard stories about me. Some of you have seen the news reports from 6 months ago. Some of you think you know who I am." He stepped out from behind the podium, You don't. He walked down the center aisle, making eye contact with each recruit as he passed.
You think I'm here to teach you how to put on a tourniquet? How to start an IV? How to pack a wound?
He stopped in the middle of the room. You're wrong. He turned slowly, surveying the faces around him. Any idiot can learn to put on a tourniquet. I could teach a monkey to start an IV. Those are mechanical skills. They require hands and training, nothing more. He walked back toward the front of the room. What I'm going to teach you is something else entirely. Something that can't be found in a textbook. Something that can't be measured on a test. He stopped at the podium and clicked the laser pointer. The screen behind him lit up with combat footage. Dust, screaming, gunfire, chaos. I'm going to teach you how to think when the world is ending. How to stay calm when your brothers are bleeding out in front of you. How to make decisions in 3 seconds that will determine whether someone lives or dies. He clicked again. The footage changed to a helicopter interior, blood everywhere. A medic working frantically on a wounded soldier. I'm going to teach you how to cheat death. He turned off the projector and faced the class. But first, I need you to understand something. The men and women who came before you, the ones who washed out, the ones who quit, the ones who decided this life wasn't for them, they weren't weak. They weren't failures. They simply weren't meant for this work. He walked down the aisle again. This job isn't about being the strongest or the fastest or the smartest. It's about being the most stubborn, the most determined, the most willing to sacrifice everything, your comfort, your safety, your sanity, for the person bleeding out in front of you. He stopped in front of a young recruit, a woman, early 20s, with fierce eyes and a determined jaw. Her nameplate read, Chen. What's your name, candidate? Chen, Senior Chief. Emily Chen. Marcus recognized her, the nursing student from St. Jude's, the one who had quit her program to become a combat medic. Why are you here, Chen? Because I want to save lives, Senior Chief. Lots of people want to save lives. They become firefighters, paramedics, ER nurses. He leaned closer. Why are you here, in this room, going through this hell? Emily's jaw tightened. Because 6 months ago, I watched a man walk into a hospital where everyone treated him like garbage. They mocked him. They belittled him. They threw coffee at his head. And then one day, when it mattered, he pulled a live explosive out of another man's neck and saved his life. Without hesitation, without fear, without asking for permission. She met his eyes. I want to be like that. I want to be the person who shows up when everyone else runs away. I want to be the one who makes the impossible possible. Marcus held her gaze for a long moment. That man you're talking about, the one from the hospital, do you know what he was doing before that day? Sir? He was hiding. He was pretending to be something he wasn't. He was letting people treat him like dirt because he thought that was the price of keeping his head down. Marcus straightened. He was wrong, and it took a dying friend to remind him who he really was. He turned and walked back to the front of the room. Every single one of you is going to face a moment like that. A moment when you have to choose between who you're pretending to be and who you really are. A moment when the easy path and the right path diverge. He turned to face the class. When that moment comes, and it will come, I want you to remember this. You didn't go through hell to be ordinary. You didn't sacrifice everything to play it safe. You became a combat medic because you wanted to be the person who stands between death and the people you love. He picked up the laser pointer. Now, Let's begin. The next 4 hours were the most intense training session those recruits had ever experienced. Marcus pushed them harder than any instructor they'd had. He challenged them, questioned them, forced them to think through scenarios that seemed impossible. But he also taught them, really taught them, not just the mechanics of combat medicine, but the philosophy behind it, the mindset, the mental framework that separated the ones who froze from the ones who acted. By the end of the session, 3 more recruits had washed out. But the ones who remained were different, harder, more focused, ready. As the class filed out, Emily Chen lingered near the door. "Candidate Chen, you have something to say?" She turned to face him. "Permission to speak freely, Senior Chief." "Granted." "That story you told, about the man who was hiding, who let people treat him like dirt." She paused. "That was you, wasn't it?" Marcus said nothing. "I was there that night, at St. Jude's. I watched you walk out of that trauma bay covered in blood, and I knew that I wanted to be like you. That whatever you had, whatever made you who you are, I wanted it too. And now that you're here, now that you've seen what this training actually involves," Emily straightened, "now I want it even more." Marcus studied her face. The same fierce determination he'd seen in the hallway of St. Jude's. The same hunger. "You remind me of someone," he said. "Who?" "A kid from Oklahoma. Young, idealistic, thought he could save the world." Marcus smiled slightly. "He grew up to be one of the best operators I ever served with. He's the reason I'm standing here today." "What happened to him?" "He got shot in the neck with a prototype fragmenting round. I pulled it out with a pair of titanium forceps in the middle of a civilian hospital." Marcus's smile widened. "He's doing physical therapy at Madigan right now. Should be back on his feet in another few months." Emily's eyes went wide. "That was him? The patient from that night?" "His name is Tex, and when you graduate from this program, if you graduate, I'll introduce you to him. He loves meeting people who were inspired by that night." "Senior Chief, thank you. For everything." "Don't thank me yet, Chen. You still have 16 weeks of training ahead of you. Plenty of time to wash out." "I won't wash out." "We'll see." Marcus turned back to his notes. "Dismissed." Emily walked out, and Marcus was alone in the lecture hall. He pulled out his phone and looked at the lock screen. Destiny's face smiled back at him. A new photo, taken just last week at the beach. She was holding a seashell, her braids whipping in the ocean breeze. "My daddy is a hero." The drawing was framed now, hanging on the wall of his office at Coronado. Next to it was his silver star, his Navy Cross, his dog tags. But the drawing was the one he looked at most. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Patterson. "Destiny wants to know if you're coming home for dinner. She made you something." Marcus typed back, "On my way, 20 minutes." He gathered his materials and walked out of the lecture hall into the California sunshine. The drive home took him along the Pacific Coast Highway. To his left, the ocean stretched to the horizon, endless and blue. To his right, the hills rolled gently toward the distant mountains. It was beautiful. After 18 months in Seattle's gray drizzle, the California sun felt like a miracle. He pulled up to the small house they'd rented in Coronado. A 2-bedroom bungalow with a yard big enough for Destiny to play in, and close enough to the base that Marcus could be home for dinner most nights. Mrs. Patterson's car was in the driveway. Through the window, he could see Destiny moving around the kitchen. He parked and walked up the front path. The door flew open before he reached it.
Daddy!
Destiny launched herself at him, and he caught her in his arms, spinning her around. Hey, baby girl, I heard you made me something.
I did. I made you a cake. Mrs. Patterson helped with the oven part, but I did all the decorating myself.
A cake? What's the occasion? Destiny looked at him like he was crazy.
It's your anniversary, Daddy.
My anniversary?
6 months. 6 months since you started your new job.
She squirmed down and grabbed his hand, pulling him toward the kitchen.
Come on, come on.
The kitchen table was covered with a homemade banner. Happy 6 months, Daddy. Below it sat a lopsided chocolate cake with Best Teacher written in wobbly frosting letters. Mrs. Patterson stood by the counter, smiling. She insisted. I can see that. Marcus looked at the cake, at the banner, at his daughter's beaming face. This is perfect.
I know.
Destiny grabbed a knife.
Can we cut it now? Can we? Can we?
Let's wait until after dinner, sweetheart.
But it's a special occasion.
All the more reason to save the best for last. Destiny pouted, but relented.
Fine, but you have to promise to eat a big piece.
I promise. Dinner was spaghetti, Destiny's favorite, followed by the promised cake. They ate in the small dining room, talking about their days. Destiny's new school, Mrs. Patterson's phone calls with her sister, Marcus's training class.
Did anyone wash out today? Destiny asked, her mouth full of chocolate.
3.
That's sad.
It is, but it's better for them to find out now that they're not cut out for this work, instead of finding out in the field when lives are on the line. Destiny considered this with the seriousness of a 9-year-old philosopher.
I guess that makes sense. Like how I found out I'm not cut out for soccer.
Exactly like that.
Except soccer doesn't have explosions.
Not usually, no. After dinner, Mrs.
Patterson excused herself to call her sister, and Marcus found himself alone with Destiny on the back porch, watching the sunset over the ocean.
Daddy?
Yeah, sweetheart?
Are you happy?
Marcus looked at his daughter. The same question she'd asked him 6 months ago, in their tiny apartment in Seattle. The question that had started everything. Yes, he said. I'm happy.
Really? Your eyes happy? Not just your mouth happy?
He laughed. Yes, really. My eyes happy. Destiny nodded, satisfied.
Good. Because I like California. I like my new school. I like Mrs. Patterson being here. And I like you being happy.
I like me being happy too.
Do you miss Seattle?
Marcus thought about it. The gray skies, the endless rain, the hospital where he'd been treated like garbage. No, he said. I don't miss Seattle.
Not even a little?
Not even a little. He put his arm around her. Everything I need is right here. Destiny leaned into him, her head resting against his chest.
Daddy?
Yeah?
I'm glad you stopped hiding.
Marcus felt his throat tighten. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. They sat there in silence, watching the sun sink into the Pacific, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. 3 weeks later, Marcus got a phone call that changed everything again. He was in the middle of a training exercise, simulated mass casualty event, candidates scrambling to triage and treat a dozen wounded volunteers, when his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. Madigan Army Medical Center. Thompson. Senior Chief, this is Captain Reynolds at Madigan. I'm calling about Tyler Brennan. Marcus's blood ran cold. What happened? Is he okay? He's fine. Better than fine, actually. The captain's voice warmed. He walked today. He walked? Unassisted,
15 feet across the physical therapy room. Captain Reynolds laughed.
He said to tell you, and I quote, "The old man can stop worrying now." Marcus felt tears prick at his eyes. That's great news. Thank you for calling. There's more. He's been cleared for light duty. He wants to come see you. Says he has unfinished business at Coronado. What kind of unfinished business? He didn't say, but he's catching a flight tomorrow. Should arrive around 1400. Marcus hung up and stood there for a moment, processing. Tex was walking. Tex was coming to Coronado. Tex was alive because of a decision Marcus had made in a hospital parking lot 6 months ago. He looked at his training class, 50 candidates now, after the washouts, working through the simulated chaos with varying degrees of competence. These were his legacy. These young men and women who would go on to serve on teams around the world, saving lives in conditions that would break ordinary people. And tomorrow, the man who had started it all was coming to see the fruits of that labor. "Senior Chief?" One of his assistant instructors was approaching. "Everything okay?" "Everything's perfect," Marcus said. "Let's get back to work." Tex arrived the next afternoon, walking with a slight limp, but walking nonetheless. He wore civilian clothes, jeans and a polo shirt, but he still carried himself like an operator. Marcus met him at the main gate. For a long moment, neither man spoke. They just stood there, looking at each other. Then Tex grinned. "You look good, old man. California agrees with you. You look like garbage. I just walked off a plane after 3 months of physical therapy. What's your excuse?" They embraced, the kind of hug that only brothers share. "How are you feeling?" Marcus asked, pulling back. "Like someone stabbed me in the neck and then yanked the knife out with pliers. Titanium forceps." "Whatever." Tex looked around the base. "So, this is where you're building your empire?" "It's not an empire. It's a training program." "Same thing." Tex started walking toward the main building. "Show me around. I want to see what my near-death experience bought." Marcus led him through the facility, the classrooms, the simulation labs, the field training areas. He introduced him to the instructors, the support staff, the candidates who stared at Tex with barely concealed awe. "That's him? The guy from the hospital? The one who took the fragmenting round? Holy shit!" Tex ate up the attention, shaking hands and telling stories. He was a natural performer, always had been. But when they finally reached Marcus's office, his demeanor changed. "Close the door." Marcus did. "What's going on?" Tex walked to the wall where Marcus's medals hung. He studied them for a moment. The Silver Star, the Navy Cross, the Purple Hearts. Then he saw the drawing. "My daddy is a hero." "Destiny made that," Marcus said, the morning after everything happened. "She's got talent. She's got her mother's eyes." Tex turned to face him. "I didn't come here just to see your office, Marcus." "I figured. I came to tell you something. Something I should have said 6 months ago, but I was too drugged up and too scared." Marcus waited. "When I was lying in that helicopter, bleeding out, thinking I was going to die, I wasn't scared of dying. Not really." Tex's voice thickened. "I was scared of what I hadn't done, the things I'd put off, the words I'd never said, the life I'd never lived because I was always waiting for someday." He walked to Marcus's desk and sat on the edge. "You gave me a second chance, not just at life, but at living, and I'm not going to waste it this time." He pulled something out of his pocket, a small velvet box. "I asked Sarah to marry me, last week. She said yes." Marcus felt his face break into a grin. "Tex, that's incredible." "I want you to be my best man." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. "Me? You. The man who pulled a live explosive out of my neck with a pair of pliers. Titanium forceps. Whatever. Tex stood up and faced him. You're my brother, Marcus. Not by blood, but by something stronger. You saved my life when you had every reason to walk away. You gave up your anonymity, your quiet life, everything you'd built, for me. I did what needed to be done. Yeah, you did. And that's why I want you standing next to me when I marry the woman I love. Tex's eyes glisten. Will you do it? Marcus didn't hesitate. Yes, of course. Yes. They embraced again, and this time Marcus didn't bother hiding the tears. The wedding was 3 months later, in a small church in Oklahoma City, Tex's hometown, where his parents still lived, where his high school sweetheart had waited for him through 4 deployments and 1 near-death experience. Marcus stood at the altar, wearing his dress blues for the first time in years. Destiny sat in the front row, wearing a flower girl dress that Mrs. Patterson had picked out, beaming with pride. Breaker was there, Ghost, Torch, the whole team, cleaned up and uncomfortable in civilian clothes, looking like a group of bears forced to wear suits. When Sarah walked down the aisle, Tex started crying before she was halfway there. "Get it together," Marcus whispered. "I can't. She's so beautiful." "You've seen her 1,000 times." "Not like this. Never like this." The ceremony was simple and beautiful. Traditional vows, rings exchanged, a kiss that made the whole church cheer. At the reception, Marcus gave a toast. "I met Tex 8 years ago in a dusty compound in Afghanistan. He was 19 years old, scared out of his mind, and convinced he was going to die before the week was out." Marcus smiled. "He didn't die. Not that week, not any week after. And you know why?" He looked at the crowd, operators and civilians, family and friends, all gathered to celebrate this moment. "Because Tyler Brennan is the most stubborn human being I have ever met. When he decides he's going to do something, survive a firefight, complete a mission, win a woman's heart, nothing in the world can stop him." He raised his glass. "To Tex and Sarah, may your stubbornness carry you through every challenge. May your love grow stronger with every year. And may you never forget that the people in this room will always have your back." The crowd raised their glasses. "To Tex and Sarah!" Later, on the dance floor, Destiny tugged at Marcus's sleeve. "Daddy, I have to tell you something." "What's that, sweetheart?" "I've been thinking about what I want to be when I grow up." "Yeah? What did you decide?" Destiny looked up at him with her mother's eyes. "I want to be like you. I want to help people." "I want to be the person who shows up when everyone else runs away." Marcus knelt down so he was eye level with his daughter. "You know that's a hard life, sweetheart. Long hours, difficult choices. Sometimes you have to sacrifice things you love for things you believe in." "I know," Destiny nodded seriously. "But you always said if you have a gift, you should use it. You shouldn't hide it." "I did say that. And you're not hiding anymore. You're using your gift. You're teaching other people how to save lives." She touched his face. "I want to do that too, when I'm big enough." Marcus felt his heart swell. "Then that's what you'll do," he said. "And I'll be there to help you every step of the way." "Promise?" "Promise." Destiny threw her arms around his neck. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, baby girl. More than anything in the whole world." On the flight back to California, Destiny fell asleep against the window, her flower girl dress wrinkled and stained with wedding cake. Marcus watched her sleep, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. The coffee cup shattering against the wall, the slap across his face,
The months of humiliation and hiding. The helicopter landing in the parking lot. The surgery that changed everything. The decision to stop being invisible. He thought about his late wife, who had believed in him when no one else did, who had given him destiny and then slipped away, leaving him to raise their daughter alone. He thought about Tex, walking down the aisle with the woman he loved. About Breaker, who had never given up searching for him. About Emily Chen, who had seen something in him worth emulating. He thought about the 50 young medics he was training right now, who would go on to save countless lives in conflicts around the world.
All because one night, in a hospital where everyone had written him off, Marcus Thompson had decided to stop hiding. The plane touched down in San Diego as the sun was setting. Marcus carried Destiny to the car, buckled her in, and drove home through the golden light. Mrs. Patterson was waiting on the front porch with a cup of coffee. "How was the wedding?" "Beautiful," Tex cried through the whole ceremony. "Sounds about right." She looked at Destiny, still sleeping in Marcus's arms. "I'll get her to bed." "Thanks." Marcus handed off his daughter and stood there for a moment, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. He thought about all the people who had underestimated him, the doctors who had mocked him, the nurses who had laughed at him, the woman who had slapped him across the face and called him worthless. He wondered where they were now, if they ever thought about the quiet nurse who had turned out to be something more. He hoped they did, not out of spite, but out of hope. Hope that his story had taught them something, that the next time they saw someone being treated badly, they would remember what happened at St. Jude's Medical Center, that they would remember the day the helicopter came. Marcus walked inside, closed the door, and went to tuck his daughter into bed. Tomorrow, he would be back at Coronado, training the next generation of combat medics, teaching them everything he knew about saving lives, passing on the lessons he had learned in the mountains of Afghanistan, in the valleys of Syria, in the corridors of a hospital where everyone had given up on him. The shepherd's legacy was just beginning, and this time, he wasn't hiding from anyone. He was exactly where he was meant to be, doing exactly what he was born to do, surrounded by the people who loved him. Marcus Thompson walked into that hospital a ghost hiding from his past. He walked out a legend who reminded the world that true strength doesn't need to shout to be heard. Some heroes wear capes, some wear scrubs, and some, the best ones, wear the invisible armor of quiet determination, unshakable faith, and the love so fierce that nothing in the world can break it. The mouse was dead. The shepherd lived on, and his flock would never stop growing.